whatever you build with your gifts, your character will destroy it. But whatever you build with your character, your gifts will complement it. Welcome to the Oscar Amisi Weekly Leadership Podcast, where we are passionate about equipping leaders with high-capacity tools to drive societal transformation. Every week we'll be dropping a teaching, and we're asking you to like it if you can, share it with your friends, and tell us where you're watching us from. And for you to get the teachings that I'm sharing in this podcast in greater detail, I'm asking you to visit Amazon and get my new leadership book, Seed It Out: How Great Leaders Become Great Leader Makers. Let's dive into this week's podcast. Character before competence, the art of self-leadership. Somebody asked me a question: who is your toughest person you've ever encountered in your leadership? Who's the greatest person? I mean, who's the most difficult person you've ever encountered to lead in whatever space that you found yourself in? We'll be answering that question as we move on. But then for us to understand this in a more greater depth, let's look at a story that I heard of the Titanic that I know must be very familiar with you too. The story of the Titanic is very interesting. In 1912, in the month of April, there was this very magnificent big ship that was making its maiden voyage from the UK all the way to New York. In fact, docking out from Southampton to New York. And people were so excited about, pre-booking seats in this ship because they'd been told this was going to be the best ship ever. In fact, they called it the strongest, the greatest, the biggest ship. They even said it's so good and so strong that nothing could sink it. They even went a step further and said even God cannot sink it. On that fateful day, people who had pre-booked bought tickets, excited, get into this ship, and they start their journey from Southampton all the way to New York. Midstream, the captain or the guy who's the pilot of this ship receives warning from his colleagues in the sea, telling him you need to be careful of the route that you're taking because there are icebergs on the way. It is said that he didn't pay attention to that, and he got several warnings, and he never paid attention. In fact, the last warning call that he got, he picked up the call and said, "Mind your own business, we are having fun." It is after putting down that call that the Titanic, this ship that was so big, hit a major and a big iceberg. And the thing was split into two and sank, and many people died, and the rest is history. Question begs, what sank the Titanic? Was it the iceberg that the captain of the ship could see? Was there anything else? Those who are used to traveling by sea would tell you that anytime you see an iceberg, what you see is just the 10%, which is just the tip of the iceberg. But below that tip of the iceberg, the 10%, is a mass of another 90% that you can't see. So what sank the Titanic? You see, in a leadership sense, the 10% of that tip of the iceberg represents who we are, represents our gifts, represents our charisma, represents how good we are, how eloquent we are, the giftings, the talents that we carry along. But then the 90% that no one can see really represents who we are, and that's our character. But unfortunately, many of us in leadership work so hard to build what everybody else can see, the 10%, and we don't pay any attention on the 90%. We make sure that we are good, eloquent in our speaking. We make sure we have the charisma that will draw people to us. We make sure that we are exciting to be close to. We pay all the attention to build the 10%. But we don't pay attention on the 90% that speaks about who we are, and that is our character, what no one else can see, but who we know we really are. The story of the Titanic, like a good friend of mine once said, Dr. Tim Elmo said, teaches us that if you can't lead yourself, then you can't lead others. If you can't take control of the 90% and manage that 90%, then it's difficult for you to be able to lead others. You see, your skill, which is part of your 10%, may get you to the top, but your skill may not keep you at the top. The only thing that can keep you at the top, as far as leadership is concerned, is your character. And today, I want us to delve into that, the art of self-leadership. If you can lead yourself, then definitely you can be able to lead others. It is character before competence. In fact, I say it is really learning to lead yourself. You see, many of us would want to play for great teams. Those of us who love sports, you want to be part of a great team, or in a leadership sense, you want to be part of a great leadership team. But very few of us understand that great teams are made of great individuals. And these great individuals, the first step that they take is to make sure that they lead themselves. They take ownership of themselves. Because when you do that, then you're able to be part of these great teams. When it comes to life and leadership, you have 100% responsibility of who you are. In fact, we say you are the chief executive officer of your life. Leading yourself is really good stewardship. It is the best thing that you can do for people out there or for people in your team. The starting point of any leadership journey is not so much in the doing. The starting point of any great leadership journey is in leading ourselves. We've got to take the victim card, throw it aside, and take responsibility of who we are and start taking care of the 90% that nobody can see. And I want to say this again, that the journey to effective leadership starts with self-leadership. If you can't lead yourself, you can't lead others. Leadership is about our person before it is our practice. I want to say that again, that leadership is really about our person before it is about our practice. It doesn't start with what we do, it starts with who we are. In fact, what we do comes from the overflow of who we are. And learning to lead yourself is the most important thing that you'll ever do as a leader. Now I want to challenge you. Would you take time and ask yourself, what is this 90%? Can I learn to lead myself? Learning to lead yourself is like holding yourself to higher standards of accountability. You make demands of yourself so that you can be better for the people that you're leading. You see, unfortunately, human nature likes to size up everyone. We like to, look at how others are, look at how they act, and we don't look at ourselves. The great leadership guru and author Dr. John Maxwell, in his book Winning with People says winning with people begins with the mirror principle. He says the first person we must examine is ourselves. And so it is in leadership. Before, as you embark on that journey, would you examine yourself? If you don't look at yourself realistically, you will never understand where your personal difficulties are coming from. End of quote. Leadership starts with us. So who is the most toughest person that you'll ever lead? I want to submit to you, the most toughest person you'll ever lead is not that person in your team that you think is so difficult, that you think doesn't cooperate. It's not that person in your home that you think doesn't, follow your orders. No, the most difficult person you'll ever lead is yourself. And that's why as we learn to lead ourselves, then we'll be able to learn to lead others. I told you earlier that leadership is about our person before it is about our practice. It is character before competence. So why is leading ourselves so important? I want to draw your attention to what the Apostle Paul said in 1 Corinthians 9, 25 to 27. This is what he says. He says, everyone who competes in the games or in a race goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last. But we do it to get a crown that will last forever. Therefore, and keep note, pay attention to what he says next. He says, therefore, I do not run like a man aimlessly. I do not fight like a man beating the air. No, I beat my body and I make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. He repeats that pronoun I 5 times, saying, it is my responsibility to lead me. It is my responsibility to take control of myself. It is my responsibility. Paul is telling us, I am working hard at leading myself, because as I lead myself well, then I can be able to lead others. There are things that we need if we are to improve our self-leadership. And I'll be sharing those with us, a few of them. Things that I think if we put them into practice, that are prerequisite if we are to effectively lead others. And the three things that I'll share with us. One is self-awareness. The second one is self-alignment. And the third one, or the last in this core, is self-discipline. But before we even dive into this, look at self-awareness, look at self-alignment, and look at self-discipline. I want us to look at the traits of a highly effective self-leadership. What makes you know that I'm leading myself well? See, leadership that works is not a destination. Leadership that works is an ongoing journey. And it's a journey that is made up of many choices, many decisions that you and I have got to make. It is not 100 meters dash. It is not an event. I told you, leadership that works is a journey. And because of that, you've got to train yourself to make better choices day in and day out in this journey. Because the choices that you make become your habits. And the habits, whether good or bad, have the power to transform your leadership either positively or negatively. So make choices, but as you make these choices, you've got to understand they'll definitely become or turn into habits. And those habits, whether good or bad, will transform your leadership journey and my leadership journey, whether positively or negatively. And that's why you've got to really look inside and ask yourself, what choices am I making? See, leadership, like I said earlier, does not start from out there, it starts from within. In fact, leadership is an inside-out craft. It is an inside-out craft. You cannot expect to have transformative results externally without you first asking yourself, what do I believe in? What am I firmly rooted in internally? The internal affects or influence the external. And this internal, like we said earlier, is really your character. This is really who you are when no one else is watching, will affect your external. So good leadership, effective leadership is built on strong, good character. And if you don't work on that, it's going to catch up with you. Listen, take note of this point because it's so key to your leadership journey and my leadership journey, that leadership then is not just a role one plays, it is a life one lives. Leadership is not just a role that you and I play, it is a life that you and I live. In fact, leadership is really leading from who we are. It's not a role one plays, it is not the things that we do, it is the life that you lead, the life that you live. Your leadership is an overflow of who you are. You and I may decide, I can lead, I don't need character, I don't need good integrity to lead. But listen, you can lead without integrity. But Andy Stanley once said, it's only integrity that gives you the moral authority to lead. So it is important for you to work twice on your character as compared to your competence. I said earlier, many of us pay attention to the 10%, which is not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. But don't you ignore the 90% just for the 10%. Spend twice your time building your character as compared to your competence. You can lead. I repeat that statement from Andy Stanley. You can lead without integrity, but it is really integrity or good character that gives you the moral authority to lead. This statement, maybe anonymous, that I picked also, says this: whatever you build with your gifts, your character will destroy it. But whatever you build with your character, your gifts will complement it. Maybe let me say this one more time. Whatever you build with your gift, your character will destroy it. And we know so many people who are so gifted, but their character caught up with them, that people even forgot how talented, how gifted they were. What came to fore was their horrible character You know how they fell from grace to grass. Why? Just because they were building too much based on their gift and paid no attention on their character. So whatever you build with your gift, your character will destroy it. But whatever you build with your character, your gift will complement it. That's what leadership, self-leadership is all about. Now to challenge you, as you watch and listen to this podcast, would you take time and build your character, even as you pay attention to your competence? Let me do a review as I bring this to a close. A few things that we've learned today. That the journey to effective leadership starts with self-leadership. If you can't lead yourself, you can't lead others. Leadership starts from our person before it is about our practice. Leadership is not just the role one plays. Leadership is the life one lives. Whatever you build with your gift, your character will destroy it. But then whatever you build with your character, your gift will complement it. I want to give you a question or two for you just to process and think about as you marinate on this podcast and as you share it with your friends. What areas do you need to work on in your character so that it doesn't sabotage your leadership? Are there areas in your leadership that you know I need to work on so that I can up or build my character and not sabotage my leadership? Think about that. And let's meet next week, as we look at self-leadership and build on what we've stopped on today. Thank you so much. Shalom. Please share with your friends. Visit Amazon. Get my new book, Seed It Out, How Great Leaders Become Great Leader Makers. And I'm sure you'll be able to sharpen and enhance your leadership as a person. Shalom and God bless you.